contact number from Carrie. At this point, I just wanted to find Charles, so I called her. And she said that he was still in Carpinteria. And I said, hey, fantastic. Charles, so I could set eyes on him and we can.
Gary was a good neighbor, but I would say in 2020 things started to change. Throughout the months during COVID when we were all at home. Dark circles under her eyes. She started wearing, hoodies. She didn't make eye contact. She wasn't friendly or talkative anymore. Carrie had some suspicious characters around. They would hang out on the street. One of them had an evil monitor. There was also that room around the bizarre times in the night, and there would be people in and out, and it sounded like she was up partying.
When Carrie's guests started coming over, they had the code, so they would just type in the code and come into the building at all hours of the night. My husband would try to tell me not to worry about it, but I started feeling a little nervous just because of my children. I would hear Carrie play loud music most nights. It would usually start between midnight and then go all the way up until about 4 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes even wake up my children. One night I was up, it was late at night, and I was feeding my daughter, and I can hear the voice of 2 women, one being Carrie, and I can hear her say, "Oh, look, there's more meth over there, grab the meth." And at that moment, I just felt a sense of shock. I couldn't believe what I heard. I now have a neighbor who was using drugs and was allowing other people in the building who were also using drugs with her. My automatic thought was just fear. I did not feel safe.
I had gone away for the weekend and I had ordered some jewelry online and it was delivered while I was out of town. I came home from my trip and I was really excited to open my packages, and I noticed that a bunch of them were missing. I had $3,000 worth of packages stolen from me. I confronted the building manager and everyone in the building, and I even confronted Carrie. When I knocked on Carrie's door, I could tell she was caught off guard. She seemed like she didn't really want me to see inside of her apartment. She just kind of acted like she didn't know what I was talking about. "Oh, I'm so sorry that happened. That's so weird. Oh, did you check with this person?" And she came off very suspicious.
Management sent out an email to everybody in the building and basically said, "What's a federal crime to take a package?" They would send them all the time. And I started thinking in my head, like, oh my God, who is this woman that we're living next to? I feel like I don't even know who she is anymore.
At this point, it's a matter of finding the location where Charles was in Carpinteria and actually making contact with Charles, so this case suspicious to me. Something just doesn't seem right with this. But at this point, I didn't want to let Carrie know that my suspicions were raised. So I thanked her for having Charles call me, knowing full well I'm about to take a drive. Photograph I had of him from his California ID. Delicious flavor of where's Charles Wilding? He looked at me, he looked at my partner, and he said, "Oh, I remember Charles. I met him years ago, but he's not here. He came here briefly, but last I saw, he had a pocket full of money. And he just left one day. So at this point, I know something's up. Thank you for unlikely to me that a 70-year-old man can disappear off the face of the earth, and those that are supposed to care for him, take care of him, are actually lying to me about everything involving his life. I needed to zero my focus in on Carrie. It seems that all roads are leading back to her.
Caroline is a chameleon, but I certainly never thought that would be the subject of her wrath. I never thought she'd turn on me the way she did. I met Caroline through a mutual friend in 2000. I met Caroline was I felt like she had big dreams for herself. I never knew to go on any auditions. Go to the job every day. I never knew where to get a paycheck. So when Caroline and I went on trips, she didn't have me first. My husband was a film director. This is our first class travel. And I took her as my guest because I felt she was so good to me in my life. The last 2 years of our friendship, we were together years mostly. During this time, Caroline knew that I was going through my separation and I wanted to get a divorce. She was like, "We can do this. Let's try it. I can help you. You need to get a lawyer." And she took over. As far as I know, Caroline never attended law school or practiced law, but she really felt that she knew the law, so she gave advice. It was hard. I was divorced with targeted me because she knew that my ex-husband is a film director. She thought that he would just pay her off and not fight the lawsuit, and she was wrong. She's a con artist.
At this point, what I know is officers responded to Charles' house in December of 2020. They couldn't get a hold of him. I contact Carrie 10 months later, and I tell her I need to get a hold of Charles. I talk to an elderly man who reports to Charles Wiley, gives me an address. It should not be hard to find this person. The next day, my partner and I drove to Carrie's Beverly Glen apartments. Morning. Hi. She invited us in and told us to have a seat and asked how she could help us. So here to talk about. Can you explain to me how you became be his trustee?
I was at some
Pharmacy? Okay, her name was Julie.
of her come to different like stationery on it,
Okay.
so it made it real hard. And I was notified that he wanted to resign from his position, and that's where I stepped in. And when I stepped in, his place was in his house.
Okay. She explained that while Charles was of sound mind, he didn't really understand finance very well. And so June had asked her to ensure that Charles was taken care of with the funds that were left behind by Charles's father and June Wilder. And Carrie's sole function was to ensure Charles's well-being.
The house, we thought would be sold by him. And so that's why Charles had, like, when we moved him out of there, he hasn't had a permanent place.
Right.
And, we were gonna then use that money, the funds, to buy him a new place that is more suitable to his needs. And since then, been staying with some friends, and he called me into this company.
Carrie seems a little frazzled, but she still had answers to the questions that I had. Any other siblings besides your young child? So, we went out to that and see if you got the address.
Okay,
He's not there.
okay.
Charles hasn't been seen well over a year. Except for so, for all intents and purposes, he's a missing person. We just don't know where he is. Where is he now? Asked if he could call Charles on my phone. He just came to bed right now. Yeah, we just found by to make sure he's okay. And she went to go look for her phone. One thing I did notice was a receipt from a local cell phone store. And it was for a cell phone purchase that was purchased 2 days prior. And the phone number was the same phone number that was provided to me by Charles Wilder that I spoke to on the phone. And I thought it a little suspicious that a receipt for that exact same phone number was on Carrie's coffee table. She called the number.
It's urgent.
I have to set eyes on, right? You know? Do you have the trust paperwork? Do you mind if I just take a look at that? Great, thanks. You've been a big help.
Yeah, I will do it, and now Dan has been.
trust documents for the Wilder estate. I located a notary on one of the trust documents, and I wanted to find out if in fact Charles Wilder's signature was on the notary journals as it was on the document for the trust, and it was not. However, looking through the notary journals, I did find out that the day that Charles allegedly had his signature notarized, Carrie Herling was a client of the notary public. So at this point, I am quite certain at least this document is a forgery, and likely the entire trust is a forgery. As a homicide investigator, I'm not in tune very much with white collar crime, and I knew I needed some help.
At this point, other neighbors and I, we were all pretty infuriated because our safety was at risk.
So I told my husband, I'm gonna write a letter to management. I wanted them to actually know, hey, my neighbor, I feel like is crazy and I feel unsafe.
But we learned from our building manager that Carrie was getting evicted. On top of many other residents complaining about Carrie and her friends, she also wasn't paying rent. So me and all the neighbors were thrilled. We all had this bonding experience over this shared traumatic experience. We were all just relieved to have her gone.
West Hills is a very residential area, mostly family oriented. I lived in West Hills in the same house for about 25 years now. It was a great place to raise my kids. Caroline moved next door to me on Easter Sunday of 2022. Before Caroline moved in, the house next door was owned by a man who lived there for at least 35 years and was a great neighbor. The first time I met Caroline Hurling, I was out walking my dogs on Easter Sunday, and she was out in the front yard. So I stopped to introduce myself and welcome her to the neighborhood. Caroline told me she was a litigation consultant, and she told me that she was burnt out on practicing law, and she wanted to open a sober living home. As soon as she said that, my heart dropped into my stomach and I felt nauseous. I was very concerned about what might be going on next door and what changes that might bring to the neighborhood. But giving her the benefit of the doubt, I thought maybe she was doing this to pay it forward and help others.
When Detective O'Donnell came to me, he thought the federal resources that I could bring might help him unravel what happened to Charles. I've been a postal inspector for 20 years. I specialize in investigating financial crimes, and it seemed to be a fraud investigation wrapped up in a potential homicide. The first thing I do in an investigation is pull bank records. It's a long process, but once I have the records, I look for large transactions. I can see money moving from Charles' accounts into a Caroline Hurling bank account, and I noticed she was spending the money. A true trustee does not spend the money for themselves.
After I enlisted the help of Inspector Versosa, I discovered that Carrie had been evicted from the Beverly Glen property, and this West Hills house was being run by Carrie as a sober living facility. Basically a court-ordered rehab facility. Whoever runs the sober living facility is paid by either the city or the state or the county to run that program. So my suspicions were this could be another scam.
About a month after Caroline moved in, that's when the problem started. As the sober living residents moved in, there were lots of people coming in and out of the house. But along with the people came a yard full of trash, broken windows. It started looking like a junkyard. And there was a lot of very loud music. Start as early as 8 in the morning and go till 2 in the morning. As well as marijuana smelling till all hours of the night. Just didn't seem there was any evidence of any attempt at sober living and rehab going on here. As time went on, the concern for my kids' safety just kept escalating. While I was out walking my dogs one morning, there was a man sitting in his car with the door open, but he was slumped over the steering wheel. It appeared as if he was likely passed out on drugs. I did try to call 911 and spoke to another neighbor who said he'd already seen it and called it in. Many of the neighbors were concerned. So with all the incidents that were building up, we started to get together as a neighborhood watch to make sure that we were recording all the things going on. It was starting to feel terrifying living next door to Caroline.
I'm an assistant United States attorney. Currently, I'm the identity theft coordinator in Los Angeles. Something bad had happened to Mr. Wilding, but we didn't know what it was.
We knew Caroline Hurley falsified documents to the court saying she's a trustee of June Wilding's estate. We knew bank accounts that she had looted, and we found that she used money from Charles' estate to buy a home in West Hills. When we felt our investigation was ready, our next step was to execute a search warrant.
The court granted us a search warrant for her current residence.
On the morning of the raid, the street is filled with cop cars. It was, come out with your hands up, you are surrounded. So I told the kids, don't go to school, you're not walking out in the middle of this, I don't know what's going on, just stay inside. Oh my gosh, there's something big going on at the sober house.
I was present along with probably 20 detectives, and the detectives and officers surrounded the house. And it was full of people. Caroline had just been woken up by us at 6 a.m., trying to hide her nervousness, but it was obvious.
What we found at the house was absolutely shocking.
It almost seemed like something out of a movie scene. She had 16 firearms, including assault rifles, zip-tied to her bedroom closet door, many of them loaded, and several of them being untraceable ghost guns.
We found heroin, methamphetamine, they had scales, the baggies, they had all the indications of drug dealing. In one of the drawers were police badges, federal badges, DEA, FBI ID cards. That was unusual.
We discovered multiple items connected to the Wilding estate, bank statements, account holdings from June Wilding.
From an investigative standpoint, that was a jackpot. The evidence we seized confirmed what we thought now to be true. Caroline had stolen all his money and used fraudulent documents. We also found evidence that showed
Los Angeles,
bigger than just
1981.
Charles Wilding. She was involved in defrauding other estates.
Some of us survived the 80s, but none of us made it out alive. FX is the shards.
The real question I had, what happened to Charles?
You can skip this ad like the toothpaste skips bacteria. Or protect your whole mouth with Crest Pro.
Delvin, you're an idiot! It's Simon!
Enjoy a whole meal plus premium chicken bites for just $7. It's the $7 Sonic Big Deal Meal.
It's thoughts.
Today
You guys don't listen to Simon. He's the big boss. He ain't Nicholas anymore, bro. Simon's the big boss. We're all gonna die. So, let's go. Everyone get in. Okay, hold E. Ready? I'm in. High focus. High focus. Yo, yellow man, bro. Stop shaking it. Listen. Yo, this guy's dancing. Yo, NFL, just dancing, bro. Shaking it. He's out of his room, bro. He's like, it's like getting quieter and quieter. Oh, you guys talking about me? I was dancing for my intro, bro. Yeah.